There was a slight chill in the air as the sun was climbing and its heat trying to take away the early morning cold breeze. The bus shelter had 3 sides and just my luck the wind was coming right at me as I sat on the bench, doing the best I could to keep the dress on my thighs. The dress came down to the knees, maybe 2 inches above them. I had a thought, slacks, or knee-high boots, maybe both. The pantyhose and black open-toed ankle-strap 3.5-inch high heels did nothing to keep my legs warm. I had not felt this cold before, however, dresses and skirts were new to me as I had only started to wear them this summer. I had turned 18 2 weeks before the end of the last school year, and like most boys I wanted to buy some beer and party with my friends that were still 17. George Jefferson was the name I had been given, and now I go by Wanda Lewis, as I said never wore any women's clothing, makeup, or had my long hair styled like a woman and the 1-inch nail tips. It was not my first choice of how to spend my summer vacation, nor did I plan on being stuck as a woman, but it happened. I should start at the beginning. Sitting in homeroom for what I had hoped would be the last time. When I found out what my grades were, damn it! 3 of the required classes I blew. The final exams I may have had hangovers. I would not be graduating. I asked what I could do, and if I went to summer school I could graduate with the next year if I wanted to be handed the diploma with the cap and gown thing. I had to decide by Monday. I had 5 days till I started summer school, or what I did not have a clue. With no compelling reason to stay at school, I did not want to hear the others congratulating themselves. I went home. Mom was not pleased with my news. I could see the displeasure on her face. Your father will not like this. Yeah, I know. I'll be in my room. As I was walking to my room, my older sister, Nancy, grabbed me by the arm and pulled me into her room. Her friend Louise was sitting on her bed. They both went to the local community college, enrolled in the cosmetology class. Sorry to hear about your bad news, Nancy said. Do you know if you are going to summer school? I have not made up my mind. Even if I go, I will have to wait to do the cap and gown thing. You know how much Mom and Dad enjoy that stuff. Why do you want to know? Nancy looked at her friend. Louise, ask him. The offered George was perplexed. Ask me what? Louise was not sure as she spoke. I entered a statewide competition for cosmetology and my hair model broke her leg. I am entered in the long hair division, and you could help as your hair is quite long. Oh, there are 3 cash prizes for 1st through 3rd place, $20K, $10K, and $5K. If you help me, you get half of whatever prize we win. George could use some money. There had to be a catch. Couldn't she do it with a broken leg? Hair is quite far from a leg. George could tell by the way Nancy and Louise were looking at each other there was a big catch. Nancy finally spoke. Well, the hair models have to walk down a runway in front of judges. Would be kind of hard for her to do on crutches. Louise knew she was going to have to sell George on the idea of becoming her model. She was after all entered in the women's long hair division. George, the long hair division I'm entered into, it's a woman's division. It's more the blending of clothes and hair. George's eyes were wide as he finally caught on. Me with my long hair in the women's division, just one small problem, I'm a guy. Louise had already thought this through. Yes, you're right, that is a problem, however one that can be overcome, and just think of it this way, if we win 1st place $10,000, where else are you going to earn that kind of money this summer? George saw the money. I really don't know, the money is tempting, I'm just not sure. Nancy had an idea. You have 3 choices: stay here, go to summer school, and have to listen to Mom and Dad tell you how disappointed they are in you. If you don't go to summer school, you know Dad will have you at the factory. It won't matter if all you do is sweep up trash. You're not going to have a freeloading summer, you blew that. Or you could help Louise. I'll be there with you. I'll be helping with wardrobe and makeup. George knew Nancy was right. I need a test run, to see if I even look like a girl, because if I don't, No way are you gonna get me into a dress. Nancy agreed. Louise, didn't your parents go on a cruise? Louise was smiling. She knew what to do now. Nancy, you're right, my parents aren't home. The house is empty. Well, you wanted a test run, George. You've got it. George was lost. He didn't mean right now. He was trying to say something, and it was just, oh no wait I. His incoherent rambling had no effect as the three of them were headed out the door, stopping only long enough to let Mom know that they were going over to Louise's house. It was very important, and they needed George to help. George was finally able to speak as they began walking the 6 blocks over to Louise's house. I don't know if this is such a good idea. Granted, my hair is really long and I'm not that tall. I'm only 5 feet 4 inches tall and weigh 120 pounds. I am flat-chested and have those extra bits between my legs. Both Louise and Nancy were laughing. Louise gathered her thoughts, then smiled at George. Remember the group Poison when they came out with their first album, the 4 guys on the cover? Their headshots made them appear to be women. A lot of women are quite challenged in the breast department big business. However, in this case a nice pair of the mastectomy replacement breast forms will do nicely. That's what my mother does. She goes around to women that need a pair of breasts and she has samples at home. When we are finished, really look at yourself, make your decision. The idea is to make you look like a woman, therefore there will be a major overhaul in your appearance. This is after all only what you wanted. You requested a test run, and to do it right it's head to toe from the skin out, and don't worry, there are ways to hide those bits. George remembered that album cover well. He got the cassette. Granted the picture was small, however, they did indeed look like women. It was the head to toe and skin out which really had him worried. Louise unlocked the door and turned off the alarm. Turning to the other two she said, let's go to the kitchen first and we can take a look at George and see what we need to do. It would be a good place to start. George went over to the refrigerator, opened it, and saw the light beer. He wondered. Louise, do you think I could have a beer? Louise answered. Not a good idea. My dad knows how much beer is in there. Same goes for the wine, and the liquor in the cabinet is locked, so no beer or booze for you. I mean, really, you blew your exams, and you still want to have a drink. You need to grow up. Just being old enough does not make you an adult. George knew she was right. So I guess it would be all right to have a cola. Louise agreed. Yes, you can help yourself to cola. George could not make out what Louise and Nancy were discussing. Finally, Louise spoke. Nancy and I both agree that although you are not hairy as in body hair, unfortunately, it is quite dark, we both believe that it would be best to wax the hair off everywhere. George wanted to protest. That assumes I will want to do this, and what about this being a test? Louise wondered why George was stalling. Okay, George, it is only hair, and it will grow back, and that is what it would do if we just shave. However, there are 3 stages to the contest. Win one stage and compete in the next stage the next week. So, it would be better if there were no hair to suggest that you're not a woman. We need to be there to check in on Friday by 5 p.m. There would not be enough time for the hair to grow long enough to be waxed off. George could see the logic. Okay, waxing would be better. Just one question, is it going to hurt? That lightened the mood. Nancy spoke. Yes, George, it will hurt a little bit. Louise knew that they needed to just get it over with. After all, it was only the first step. She left to get a tape measure, and when she returned, she looked at George. What type of underwear do you wear? Only ask because you need to take your clothes off. I have to measure you to see what size you are. Just start and you can tell me as you remove your clothes. George turned sideways on the kitchen chair and started by removing his tennis shoes. I wear briefs. He took off his t-shirt, unbuckled his belt and removed his blue jeans and was standing in his socks and briefs. Louise very quickly determined the appropriate size in panties and dress size 5. As for the size of the bust, that was problematic. The appropriate size could only be determined after the selection of a pair of breast forms. Louise went to the room that her mother used as her home office. She stopped on the way to plug in the wax pot to start warming the wax up. She hoped that her mother did not lock the cabinet where the breast forms were kept. She was in luck the cabinet was unlocked. There was, however, one slight problem. Most of the women that mother helped had somewhat larger breasts. Many women, when given the choice of a replacement size, went down a size or 2. The smallest size was the breast form to fill a C-cup bra, therefore, George's bra size would be 34C. Louise returned to the kitchen with the breast forms and adhesive and set them down on the kitchen table. George noticed the box. "What's in the box?" Louise slid them over, saying, "That's your size, go ahead, look." George opened the box and there were a pair of breast forms inside. He very carefully grabbed one, it kind of wiggled and had some weight. He put it back into the box. He saw the can of spray adhesive and very quickly realized what he was in for. At some point they would apply with adhesive the pair of breast forms to his chest, which would give him the appearance of having breasts. "These seem to be large to me." Louise agreed, saying, "A pair of breast forms to fill A or B cup would have been better. Unfortunately, that pair are meant to fill a C cup. They were the smallest size, or we could go to D or DD." And she laughed. No way did George want to go bigger. "The C cups will be fine." "Really?" George realized that with his facial and body hair removed by waxing and the addition of the breast forms, all they would need to do would be to hide his privates. If they did everything to really make him appear to be a woman, they would succeed. He most definitely would look like a woman, and there would go the only reason he gave as to why he wouldn't do it. Nancy realized they had a problem. "Louise, you do realize he is smaller than we are. I doubt if anything you have will fit him." Louise agreed. That really could be a problem, but only for tonight. Because he is close to Gloria's size, and with a little adjustment you should have no problem with the wardrobe that we were going to use, that is after all your department. But we could be lucky if my mother has not taken the boxes of my old clothes to the Goodwill. "Oh, I'll have to check the garage and see if the boxes are there." When Louise had returned from checking for the boxes in the garage, she was smiling. "Today is your lucky day, George. I believe I have everything here that you will need to see yourself as a young woman that will be helping me. I have no doubt that you will have to agree that you do look like a woman after your sister, and I have finished with you." George grimaced. His face could only be described as terrified. "What do you want me to do?" Louise was trying to get the activities organized in her mind. "Nancy, get the wax pot from the bathroom. Be careful, it will be hot, and take it to the living room. George, you can wait in the living room. I will be getting an old sheet and a pillow as we do not want any drops of wax on the carpet." George was the first to get to the living room and was waiting for what was sure to be a painful experience. Louise was next, and she spread out the sheet, placed the pillow, then tossed a black bikini bottom, saying, "Put these on and don't forget to pull your bits back and out of the way." George caught the black bikini bottoms, holding them like they were the Black Death, and went to try to put them on and hide his boy bits. In the bathroom, he decided that he needed to take a piss. As he was about to take aim at the bowl, he was shaking so badly he thought it might be better for him to sit down on the bowl. Wiping himself off, he stepped out of his briefs and put on the black bikini bottoms. His first attempt was not that great, as he could not keep the ball sack back and out of the way. He decided on holding the balls up in the front and only pulling the cock to the resting place back and out of the way. Man, these were very tight. However, when he looked at the result, his front had changed to look more like a girl. He had removed what he had thought was the biggest problem, if by just doing that he could change the appearance, and he really did not know what he was doing. Then Louise and Nancy would have no problem turning him from a boy to a girl. He went back to the living room. Did not work like you told me, but think this is the look that you wanted. Louise and Nancy both agreed when they saw the smooth front that George had achieved. Louise motioned. George, lay on the sheet head on the pillow. We'll be starting on the front with your right leg toes to hip, then we will repeat on your left leg, your torso, and both your arms. Louise started with the toes proceeding to the top of the foot and then a strip of wax up the front of his shin to his knee. She did the same for his left leg, and while she was doing this, Nancy pulled the first small strips of wax from George's toes. George cried out. That really hurt. Don't be such a baby, Nancy retorted. I don't know if you heard this before, the price of beauty is pain, now you know. She laughed as she pulled the first long strip of wax from George's right shin. George did not want to cry out from the pain, however, he felt there would be nothing wrong with silently acknowledging the pain as the tears began to flow. He was beginning to think maybe summer school wasn't such a bad idea. Okay, it was what Mom and Dad would have to say that was one of the motivating factors in reaching the decision to become Louise's hair model. The other, he had to admit he really could use the money if they won any of the prizes. After Nancy had finished the right leg and moved over to the left leg, Louise went back to the right leg, applying a strip of wax on either side of the center strip. She did the top of a knee, then did 6-inch strips on the top and sides of the thigh, then went back to the left leg, and it was more of the same until the only thing left to do was his facial hair. Louise looked at George. She could tell he had cried from the pain, but he took it. George, there is some baby oil next to the sink in the bathroom. For some reason it's helpful in removing some stray bits of wax. Then jump into the shower, and don't worry about the panties, they're very thin and they'll dry quickly. It'll just be easier for you to leave them on. Pat yourself dry, apply the powder and put on the bathrobe hanging on the inside of the door, then come to the kitchen. George made his way to the bathroom and was coating himself in the baby oil. He was amazed that as painful as it was only brief. It's just that there was so much of it. He ran the water for the shower as hard as he could stand it to help remove the baby oil. Body wash lavender. The floral aroma was very pleasant, although he was beginning to smell more like a woman. After he had dried off and dusted himself with, of course, a lavender-scented powder, Louise left him a pink robe. He made his way to the kitchen, sat down, and took a sip of the cola he had been drinking, and it was so hot. He got up, got a glass, put some ice in it, and poured the cola into it. It was then he noticed they had relocated the wax pot. Okay, I know you need to do my face, just let me finish this cola first. It will get too watery if I don't drink it now. Louise asked, What do you think so far? He looked at her incredulously. There was a bit more pain, and now I take it I'm in for some more. I want you to finish it, but I wish I never said yes to giving this a test run. Because, if you want to do it right, I won't be able to be myself until we either win a prize or get sent home. Before this goes any further, I want to point out to you that there may be a big problem. As in, who am I when you turn me into this woman that you need to help you? My identification has my name as George Jefferson and lists me as M. Nancy looked at Louise. He makes a very good point. Had you even thought of that? Louise thought very hard at this new problem. She had the answer. I'll be right back. I believe I have the answer to that question. It's in my room. She went into her bedroom, and on her vanity there inside the jewelry box in the bottom little drawer was the identification card for her second cousin Wanda Lewis. She left it 2 years ago, and last year there was that terrible accident, and the girls' volleyball team had an accident. Most everyone had an injury except there were 3 fatalities, and Wanda was one of them. This identification card was from 4 states over, complete with everything except no picture. With the identification card in her hand, she went back to the kitchen. She placed the card in front of George, saying, Your new name is Wanda Lewis. With this identification card it will work. As George was looking at the ID, he noticed 3 things that could call into question the veracity of claiming to be Wanda Lewis. According to this, I should be 5 foot 3 inches tall and weigh 115 pounds and still 17. Louise informed George. The ID was issued 3 years ago, not unheard of to grow an inch between the ages 15 and 17, and you only gained 5 pounds, no big problem, and you won't be going out drinking, it'll work. Nancy looked at Louise a little bewildered. You told me before that identification card for Wanda Lewis was all you had to remember her by, no photo, just that. Now George was confused. Who was Wanda Lewis? Louise told George about Wanda and how she died. Relax, nobody there will have any idea that you aren't who you claim to be. George picked up the identification card and read the name. Wanda Lewis, my name is Wanda Lewis. I need a little bit more than just a name. Where could I be from? Still local yet unknown, a couple counties over maybe. I have to be from somewhere. Someone will ask a question and standing there dumb as if I don't know anything about myself. Well, actually I don't. I just have a name. You see the problem and what we have 2 days to create a past that people will believe if they happen to ask, and I'm sure they will. But it still could work. Both Louise and Nancy were nodding their heads in agreement. Louise inquired. George, this is the last chance for you to back out, because part of the facial waxing will be your eyebrows. I see what you mean. He hesitated briefly. He sighed. Then I guess it's goodbye, George. Hello, Wanda. With that commitment from George, Louise waxed the little facial hair that George had off and gave the eyebrows very definite thin and feminine arches, and as he had said, hello, Wanda. Louise and Nancy worked together as a team. They cleaned the area of the chest where the breast forms would be applied. After spraying the adhesive on the breast forms, they each took one and applied it firmly to his chest. After 5 minutes, they slipped him into his first bra. It was black to match the panties. They followed this with the black slip that went down to mid-thigh. They handed him a pair of pantyhose off black and instructed him how to put them on. Then had him step into a pair of black patent leather Mary Janes with a modest 2-inch heel. They helped him into the dress. It was a black floral print that ended 2 inches above the knee. They zipped the back. Louise quickly brushed his hair and pulled it into a high pony, as it was the quickest style, and it was a very feminine way to have a ponytail. Go ahead, you can take a quick look, then tell me what you see. Dude looks like a lady. He got up and walked very carefully, as this was the first time he was in a pair of heels. He did realize that these heels were only half an inch taller than the cowboy boots he wore. Amazing, never really thought of those boots as having a high heel. Louise had a full-length mirror in her bedroom, and upon arriving there with what they had done, he already looked like a woman. Of course, she could look better if she were wearing some makeup and had her hair done better, but it was a good start. Turning around, headed back out to the kitchen. You're right, even without makeup or my hair styled, I see a woman. I can't go home now. So what excuse are we going to come up with for me not going home and going to help you? Nancy realized. Then you are going to do it. Of course, I have to do it, looking around at both Louise and Nancy. Sure, if I take off the heels and the clothes and put on what I wore here. Take my hair out of this high pony, I can't hide my eyebrows. They scream, woman, no way, can't go home. However, I have noticed that there are 2 things there what a woman would have. The first is my ears are not pierced, and most women, not all, have theirs done. The question is 2 or 3 pairs. Yeah, I noticed that most hip girls now have 3 pairs of earrings. The second is I have no nails. My fingernails are terrible. Nail polish won't fix these. I know both can be done at the mall, but I don't have the money, and no way would I be confident to go to the mall without makeup. Louise was smiling. It seems that Wanda wants to wear makeup and have her ears pierced and a manicure, more than likely some nail tips. I think we've created a diva. And with that, all 3 of them had a good laugh. When the laughter had finally died down, Louise and Nancy proceeded to do Wanda's makeup. It did not take them long. They were, after all, cosmetologists. That does not mean they did not do it all, it's just that they were very fast. A creamy beige foundation followed by translucent medium powder, black eyebrow pencil, eyeshadow and a trio of violet, black eyeliner for both the upper and lower lids, black mascara, blush for the cheeks and lip liner and dark red with the shiny candy apple red lipstick. Wanda was ready. Tossing some essentials into a black purse with the shoulder strap which Wanda placed on her shoulder, they left for the mall. Louise would drive them as the mall was 2 miles away. Nancy looked at the girl in the back seat and wondered at how easily George just ceased being and Wanda took over. Needed to know. Okay, you really do look like a woman. You seem to have decided you're not going to be George anymore, that you are Wanda from now on, or am I wrong? The realization. Wanda looked at her sister. Isn't it obvious? How could I not wonder at what my life would be like if I had been born a girl? Now it seems I don't have to wonder anymore. Yes, I doubt that I will be going back calling myself George or living as a guy. You two have opened the door and I have decided to go through it. You should have known this was gonna happen. I mean, why would you ask me to do this if you didn't already know I would? Nancy was amazed at this revelation. Quickly she thought about what she thought she knew and still was at a loss, saying, how should I have known? Sure, you never dated a girl, but many boys don't get to have dates. You did spend a lot of time with Douglas Peterson. He was the president of the photography club, and you were the vice president. You weren't with him? No, laughing, Wanda sighed. I might have. He never asked. We just liked photography, although he was much better at taking pictures. Okay, I did have a crush on him. I was hoping to work with him after high school. Peterson Photography is the name of his studio. I really messed things up by drinking. Louise pulled into the parking lot at the mall, trying to get close to the main entrance, and the best she could do was section D and the 10th space in that row. Okay, in case I forget, somebody please remember D10 and we might be able to find the car. As they were getting out of the car, Wanda looked around. She was quickly scanning for anyone she might know. She knew she looked different, however, she had a feeling someone could recognize her. Nancy spotted the apprehension. The concern was very evident. Wanda was nervous. Relax, if you act like something's wrong, someone might think something's wrong. Wanda looked at her sister. Yeah, that's easy for you to say. This is the first time I have been anywhere dressed as a girl. You and Louise have always been girls. I know where I want to go to first, the ear-piercing pagoda, the one that's just outside of the Dillards. The three of them went straight to the kiosk. A very young, pretty sales associate looked at Wanda and inquired, I can see that your ears are not pierced. I imagine that you would be wanting to have your ears pierced. If so, we do free piercing with the purchase of a starter set. How many pairs of earrings would you like to start with? Wanda did not hesitate. I would like 3 pairs of the gold studs, going from larger to smaller. Her name tag read Debbie, and she was quick. Rubbing the earlobes with alcohol and dotting them for the placement, and loaded the ear-piercing gun with one of the larger ball studs, she began. As fast as she could, reload the second and then the third were in the left ear. She paused, checking to be sure of the placement, and changed the location of the top hole of the right earlobe. The fast and precise work was over as quickly as the right ear was done. She handed Wanda a mirror. What do you think? Wanda looked at the change that having earrings had made. She knew she made the right choice. They look great. Louise got out her bank card, saying, Make it $30, handing her card to Debbie. Turning to Wanda. Regal Nails all right with you? It is just down past the food court. I'll pay, then when you are done come to the food court, as I don't want to wait for you. Besides, I am hungry, and the Golden Walk has just what I am craving. Wanda agreed to the plan. If Louise did not want to wait, fine, she was paying. As she was walking down to the nail salon, she thought she saw Doug. It was that feeling again. Running into him would be bad as he had taken lots of photos of George and might be able to tell. She did not turn around to see if she had seen him. Because if he were not sure when Wanda would turn to look back, he would get another chance to see her face. She hoped she was wrong. As they got to Regal Nails, Louise went to talk to the receptionist, then came back saying, "You are in luck, they have time to do both a manicure with nail tips and a pedicure. As I have already paid, go pick out your color." Then very quietly in Wanda's ear, "When the nail tech hands you the disposable flip-flops, use the women's to take off the shoes and pantyhose." As Nancy and Louise were headed to the food court, "Did you see Douglas Peterson?" "I thought I did." Louise agreed. "Yes, I am sure it was him. Maybe he did not notice. He does know that George is your brother, but Wanda he has not seen before." Wanda was at a loss. There were so many colors. Then she remembered she could try to match her lipstick, and it was in her purse. She pulled out the tube of lipstick and read on the bottom, Candy Apple Red. Rather than waste time looking for a match, she went up to the receptionist saying, "This is the color that I would like, and do you have it frosted?" The receptionist took the lipstick from Wanda, and in what must have been a language that could be Asian, the country of origin was beyond her knowledge. The receptionist handed the lipstick to another Asian woman saying, "This is Mei Ling, she do your nails." Mei Ling spoke in broken English. "You come follow this way." Wanda made her way to a pedicure station where Mei Ling handed her the disposable flip-flops. "You go put on, okay." Wanda made her way to the women's room where she removed her Mary Janes and the pantyhose that she was wearing. She opened up the package of disposable flip-flops. They were indeed very cheap, but they served their purpose. She was glad that she could shove the pantyhose into one of the Mary Janes. She made her way back to the pedicure station. She had never had a pedicure or a manicure or nail tips, however it did seem like the right thing to do. She sat down in the chair and took off the flip-flops, placing her feet into the warm water. There were jets aimed at each foot, giving her feet a watery massage, and the chair itself was equipped with a back-rubbing machine, and it felt nice. She liked it. This was a type of pampering that she could get used to. However, she was sure that there was a hefty price. She didn't care at this time as Louise was paying. Mei Ling was very quick, and after a minute or two she pointed to the right foot saying, "Put here," after trimming the toenails. She just pointed to the water and said, "Other foot." And this was pretty much the routine, one foot then the other, scraping away the dead skin from the heels and some that Wanda didn't even know she had on the balls of her feet. Slightly tickled, she had to stifle a laugh, and it was hard to let her hold onto her foot and tickle it that way. She knew she was nearing the end when first the right foot ankle and midway up the calf with an apricot scrub, massaging it and then placing it back into the water, rinsing it off and repeating with the left leg. She then dried the feet. Then put flip-flops onto the feet and a foam divider separating the toes. The frosted Candy Apple Red nail polish was a sure sign that the pedicure was almost over, and then in broken English, "You come this way. Sit number 3. She put the nail polish down at the station and just walked away. Wanda was a little confused until a different nail tech which spoke in very good English. "You have to excuse her. Her English may not be that good, but she is very good at pedicures. I prefer manicures." "So, do you know what you want?" Wanda replied, "I know I want some nail tips. This is my first time. Other than that, I'm not quite sure. But I do know I only want them to be half an inch longer than my fingertip. The acrylic overlay, not the gel." Julie was the name of this nail tech. "I'll tell you right now so you won't be shocked. The nail tips are about 1.5 inches long. I will trim them down. I will start with the right hand, so if you would put your left hand into this dish to let them start to soak, then trade your hands." She filed and trimmed the fingernails of the right hand, and when she was finished, she simply indicated that it was time to trade hands. She worked on the left hand, pushing the cuticles back, trimming them, then she clipped the nails as they were soft. Wanda was amazed at how quickly Julie was working. She had finished the manicure part on the left hand and was selecting the sizes of the nail tips, and once she had finished the sizing, she quickly buffed the natural nail with what looked like a small drill. Then, with something from a clear bottle, it must have been some sort of prep liquid for the nail glue, which would be used in conjunction with the nail tips. Starting with the left thumb, she applied the nail tips to each of the fingers next. Those nail tips were long. If she had not been warned, it would have been quite a shock. Before cutting them back, she inquired, "Square or classic oval?" Wanda did not have the answer and guessed, "Square this time, and if I don't like them, then I will try oval next time." Julie trimmed them to the length and buffed the ridge of the nail tip. "Okay, time for the right hand." She repeated the process of trimming the cuticles, sizing, and applying the nail tips, trimming them to size. After a quick buffing, "Go wash your hands." Wanda was astonished at how much a difference the nail tips made. She washed and dried her hands and returned to the nail station. After she sat down, Julie wasted no time. She began applying the acrylic. It was a two-part system. First, the brush was dipped into a liquid and then inserted into a powder where it was rolled to form a ball, which was then used to cover the natural nail from the cuticle going to the end of the freshly applied nail tip. It was amazing how quickly and effortlessly she made it look. Wanda doubted that she could even apply nail polish that quickly. Julie did the right hand first, then she did the left. Wanda thought that it would take time for the acrylic to dry and harden, but she was wrong. No sooner than Julie had finished applying the acrylic to the left hand, the right hand had dried enough to begin applying polish. When the right hand had its first coat of the frosted candy apple red applied to the fingernails, Julie switched to the left hand and applied the nail polish to fingernails. Almost done, one more coat of the red and then a clear top coat. Then the hard part, you just sit at the drying station for 30 minutes or risk damaging the nail polish. Then you can put on your pantyhose, and be careful, you could put a run in them. "I will bring your stuff. Don't move until the timer goes off." Wanda was smiling. "Both of you did an amazing job. However, she forgot the foam wedge between my toes. I really don't want to damage these nails trying to remove it, so could you please?" Julie laughed. "Well, she is very busy, and unless I have no nail tips or manicures, I just don't like to do pedicures." "Who's that girl?" Douglas Peterson was wondering who the girl was that had been walking with Nancy and Louise. He thought she must be related to Nancy, as she had the look a sister or cousin would have. He knew that Nancy did not have a sister, just a brother, George. However, the same height and long hair. No, that was just foolish to think that the girl he saw was George. But the thought would not go away. He went to the Camera's Lens, neat name for a store for all that were interested in photography. He was going to need film and batteries for his first commission as a professional photographer. George would have been with him, but he did not pass the courses he needed and would be going to summer school. The State Cosmetology Challenge would be starting in 2 days, and he knew that Louise and Nancy would be going if they found a girl to replace. "That's it, she is the replacement," Nancy had asked her cousin. He got what he needed and went to his SUV. He didn't know why, but he got the telephoto lens from its case and put it on his camera. He knew he could stop all of the guessing by taking a photo of the right side of the face of the girl next to the eye and in front of the ear, and if she had the same scar, a crescent shape, it was small, but it would be there if it was George. The girl was headed to the Regal Nails, and she should still be there. He found the spot to take the money shot. 5 minutes later, he was headed out to his SUV. His next stop would be his darkroom. The camera that fit the lens still required film, and then with his loupe he could see if the scar were there. 20 minutes later, he was amazed as he saw the scar. George was the girl he had seen, then he could be the replacement. He would enjoy his first job as the professional photographer for the State Cosmetology Challenge. He thought about just showing up at the cosmetology challenge, however, he wouldn't want to give George a heart attack. He really liked George and he knew that George had a crush on him. So, he would give George a heads up, of course having a little fun before saying it was all right. He quickly went to his SUV and drove back to the mall. Driving around the parking lot until he spotted the Chevy Malibu that Louise drove. He parked near the car within view of the main entrance, got out his cell phone and, in his contacts, tapped George's number, calling his cell phone. Wanda finally heard the timer go off. She very carefully got her hands out from under the drying station and picked up the Mary Janes with the pantyhose, headed to the women's restroom for the second time in her life. After entering and locking the door, she hung her purse on the hook. Before putting on the pantyhose, she realized the cola she drank earlier was letting her know she needed to go. It was a relief as she sat on the toilet remembering girls don't stand. What a strange day it had started when George realized he blew it and then he got the offer to be a hair model for Louise. After finishing her business, she wiped herself off and with some difficulty managed to hide the boy bits. It was quite a challenge to put on the pantyhose with her new nails. She recalled how it was necessary to make like a small donut in the legs of the pantyhose before attempting to put them on. She was amazed she didn't put a run in them. She put on the Mary Janes, washed her hands, grabbed her purse, throwing it on her shoulder, unlocked the door to the restroom and proceeded to the food court. Wanda did not realize how hungry she was until she could smell the food. She saw Louise and Nancy and joined them at the table. "I was wondering, do I get something to eat here or back at your house, Louise?" Louise, realizing it would be much easier just to buy Wanda something to eat here. "Here is fine, what would you like?" Wanda had decided. Beef with broccoli, fried rice and an egg roll, oh, a diet cola. Both Louise and Nancy laughed at that. Louise handed Wanda a $10 bill, still laughing a little. "You're going to have to order it yourself because I'm not a waitress." They all had a good laugh at that. Wanda got her food and returned to the table, giving Louise her change, and began to eat her meal. "I thought I saw Doug, did you see him?" Nancy could see the concern on Wanda's face. "Yes, if you mean Douglas Peterson. He didn't seem too concerned and didn't even stop to say hello." "You shouldn't worry about it." Wanda took a deep breath. "He really knows my face, of course not this way. I don't know, I just have a funny feeling about this." The three of them left and made their way back to the main entrance. They had just stepped outside when Wanda heard her cell phone, or rather the cell phone that George had. It was ringing inside her purse. It was the special ringtone for Doug. Wanda was really concerned as she reached into her bag, saying, "This is very strange, we were just talking about Douglas Peterson. As soon as we step out of the mall, this phone starts ringing and it's him." Nancy looked at Louise and then at Wanda. "Well, you're not gonna find out what he wants if you don't answer the phone." Wanda could barely hold the phone, as her hand was shaking trying to hold it to her ear. "Hello, what do you want, Doug?" Douglas Peterson was going to have some fun. "Well, George, I wanted to say I'm so sorry that you blew those classes because I have some really good news. Peterson Photography has been commissioned, and that means you could have been working with me on my very first professional job as a photographer." Wanda forgot for a moment where she was and that she wasn't George. Well, not really. It was confusing. She wanted to be happy for Douglas, but Douglas was wanting to talk to George, so confusing. "I was telling Nancy earlier how badly I had blown things. I knew you'd do well as a photographer, and I was looking forward to working with you. That was my plan." Douglas could not believe the transformation George had made into quite a lovely girl. Too many similarities between the boy George. "Well, that's kind of funny." No, he couldn't laugh. "I was wondering, are you going to be going to summer school? Because if you're not, then you could still work for me this summer, or you could even pick up the classes at night school and just come work for me." I mean, that's what we agreed on, sort of planning for the future. I thought we'd have something, maybe. I don't know, I'm confused, always thought you wanted to work with me. Wanda did not know what to say. She was very distracted. You know what they say about cell phone calls, they are a distraction. Mostly it's the conversation that proves to be detrimental to the activity one is engaging in while on a call. Whether it be driving a car or trying to walk. The point in the case was that she almost fell stepping off the curb. That would be great, unfortunately I thought you'd be disappointed just like my parents. I have made a commitment, I have to see it through. Douglas could see that the girls were almost to Louise's car. It was time to spring the big surprise. I didn't mention the job would be as one of the photographers at the State Cosmetology Challenge. You could help me celebrate tonight, that is if you wanted to. Wanda was frantic, not knowing what to say, didn't want to lose a friend, not after what he just said, possibility of a future together. However, before she could think of something to say, they were at Louise's car. Douglas stood there smiling. You can hang up now, this is very strange. I've never seen you like this before, and I don't even know your name. Well, I know you're not going by George now. Wanda felt very lightheaded, she was like a deer caught in the headlights, unable to move, to speak, frozen. Douglas looking at Louise and Nancy. Okay, tell me if I'm wrong. After finding out that George would not be graduating, you presented him with an option, you needed a new hair model. At first, because of the family resemblance to Nancy, I thought of a cousin because I knew she didn't have a sister, however the same color hair, the same height, I really wouldn't have known. Except, 2 years ago when handing George the telephoto lens, I gave him a little scar a little above the right eye in front of the ear, a crescent shape, not very big but very noticeable to someone who knew it was there. I had questions, I wasn't sure, but I needed to know. I saw in the photo that this girl had the exact same scar. Hello, say something. Wanda was trying, but no words were coming, the only thing she managed to say. Yes, you figured it out. You can call me Wanda. Douglas looked at Wanda. Wanda, that is a nice name, it really suits you. So, what are your plans other than this challenge? Wanda looked at him a little puzzled, he could very easily put an end to all of this. So, does this mean you're not going to tell about me? He laughed. Well, I didn't want to give you a heart attack at the challenge. It is all right, whether you win or lose I will not interfere, but I probably will take a lot of photographs of you going to remember this job. After the challenge it won't matter, you can still come to work for me. However, I don't think I could ever look at you and see George now that I've seen you as Wanda. So, are you going to continue to be Wanda? Wanda's brain beginning to formulate thoughts and ideas into words. She had wondered what she was going to do after the challenge, and now she could have it all. Yes, I can no longer think of myself as the boy that you knew as George. I will be Wanda from now on. Hard to believe how much her life had changed in just 3 short months. Unfortunately, although Louise and Nancy did their best, they did not win the first prize in her division. They won second, so Wanda thought she would be going home with $5,000. However, Doug asked her to stay on as his assistant. So, she stayed on. Not only was she working with Doug, she stayed with him in his motel room. It seemed, but there was only one check for $10,000 and it was a paper check, but not like a regular check, some sort of bank draft, and it would actually need to be sent through the banking system to be processed for payment. After close to 1 month as Wanda, she didn't have $1, but she did have a job. And a place to stay, and after 2 months of helping Doug with his business, playing house, enjoying that, she did want more. She didn't know how to tell, to ask, inform, she really wasn't sure herself. There was something missing. She liked being the girl living as one and having the role as one. When having sex with Doug, it was just her boy bits didn't respond, she wasn't into that. That's how she knew that something was missing from her life. Doug, please don't take this the wrong way. I know I love you, I know that. It's just that something is wrong with me. You were right, I did have a crush on you, but it was the way a girl would have a crush on a boy. Kind of confusing. I was a boy and I'm still a boy, but I never wanted to be a boy with a boy, but I knew I had a crush on you, I just didn't know what to do. As you can see, I'm still not into being a boy with a boy, but I enjoy having sex with you the way a girl would. Doug looked at Wanda. Yes, I could tell. I just thought you were going to have to become comfortable with your sexual orientation. Now I realize there's more to it. You're much happier as a girl, and if you think you could be happier if you did transition into becoming more like a girl, I'm not so sure I'm saying this right, it wouldn't change how I feel about you. I know for tax purposes you had to put me on the books as George Jefferson, and that's what makes this so hard. I really don't look like George, I know I was going by Wanda Lewis. However, I only used that name for the challenge. But I do like Wanda. I guess the first thing I need to do is to have my name legally changed. Then go to the county mental health services, I'm sure someone there could help me and explain to me what steps there are with transitioning from a boy to a girl. Go ahead, take the day off tomorrow. And don't worry, I'll still be here and you're still welcome to stay with me. Wanda had tears in her eyes. She wasn't sad, she couldn't believe that Doug would still want her. You're right, I do have a lot to do tomorrow. You wouldn't happen to know a good lawyer that could help me with the legal change of name? Yes, I do have the name of a good lawyer. He's my lawyer who helped me set up the business, helped me with the business license, all the permits. There are some dangerous chemicals that require permits and how often you have to renew them. Let me get you his card and you can tell him I sent you to him. Wanda did not think she was that early for the bus, perhaps she was so eager to try and make her life real or something more like having a real existence as Wanda Jefferson. Yes. That's it, a real existence as Wanda Jefferson. Then she might have that lunch with her mother. She had not been home or seen her parents since the afternoon Nancy had told her mother that they needed George to help them with something important. All they knew was that George had went to help them at the state cosmetology challenge, and while there George was offered a job. Nancy was deliberately vague as to the details of what the job was and who the job was with. She claimed that both Louise and her were rather despondent as to not winning first place. Regrettably, they were rather dismissive, and it was more like, yeah, sure, go ahead if that's what you want to do. No, you can't have your money, the check has to process. She did give her mother some good news. The man that offered the job was going to require night school and then a general equivalency diploma in order to continue employment. Wanda knew that she would have to get her mother to accept her as Wanda because Dad would need some real convincing. She was hoping that her mother would be more accepting at having a daughter than her father would. It was kind of funny, she remembered the saying, today is the first day of the rest of your life. She thought there might be more, but she really couldn't remember. Working for Doug had always been the first choice, so in a way she did get her first choice, just not the way she planned it. She thought for a moment. She liked the way things were turning out, she never planned on it. However, it turns out that this was the choice, she just didn't know it at the time.